What if you tried to stop a tsunami with a giant sponge? This question comes from probably someone who's seen a tsunami and thought, man, we should just soak that thing up. And you know what? That's the kind of can-do attitude we need more of. So let's see what would happen if we tried to fight one of nature's most destructive forces with the world's most absorbent household item, the sponge. Let's begin with the basics. A tsunami isn't just a big wave, it's a wall of ocean powered by massive amounts of energy, usually released during underwater earthquakes, landslides, or the occasional meteor. It can travel at jetliner speeds across the open sea and build up to terrifying heights as it reaches the shore. It's like the ocean suddenly remembers it has unfinished business with land. So how do we stop it? Well, we get a sponge. Not just any sponge, a really big sponge. The biggest sponge humanity can imagine. Probably made of that yellow porous stuff you scrub your sink with, but now, the size of a skyscraper, or maybe even bigger. Let's say we place our mega sponge right along the coast, and we make it, say, 2 kilometers long, 500 meters wide, and 200 meters tall. We even anchor it down, so it doesn't float away. Our tsunami is now approaching. It's roaring in at 30 meters tall and moving at 50 kilometers an hour, which in ocean terms is basically your screwed speed. But it crashes into our sponge fortress and it gets a little wet. Now here's the issue. Sponges, even really good ones, can only absorb so much. Your standard kitchen sponge can soak up about 10 times its weight in water. So let's be generous and say our giant one can do the same. Given that water weighs about 1,000 kilograms per cubic meter and our sponge has a volume of 200 million cubic meters, it could theoretically soak up 2 billion kilograms, or 2 million tons of water, which sounds like a lot, until you realize even a small tsunami brings in something closer to 100 billion tons of water. Our sponge is now soggy, sad, and probably floating away, while the tsunami continues onward like nothing happened. But we're not giving up yet. This is humanity. We've invented duct tape, particle accelerators, and deep-fried butter. Surely we can build a better sponge. What if we scale things up? Let's give every human on Earth a super sponge the size of a small house. That's 8 billion mega sponges lined up across the coast, each ready to absorb their heroic share of ocean rage. Now we're talking about hundreds of billions of tons of sponge capacity, possibly enough to absorb a moderate tsunami. If everyone coordinates perfectly, and if the tsunami politely arrives in slow, absorbable waves, and if nobody drops their sponge. But let's be honest, some guy in Canada is going to squeeze his sponge too early. Someone in Brazil will use theirs to clean their car instead, and a group in Australia will just start surfing. Human coordination is not our strong suit. Also, all that water has to go somewhere. Sponges don't delete water, they just move it. So now we have billions of dripping sponges full of seawater. We've stopped the tsunami and accidentally created the world's biggest mold problem. Okay, so what if we use futuristic sponge tech? We build a synthetic sponge made of ultra-absorbent nanofoam with microscopic water traps and vacuum channels. We launch a wall of these sci-fi sponges from planes and drones, intercepting the tsunami before it even reaches land. It hits the floating sponge barricade, which soaks up water at lightning speed. This just might work, until the waterlogged nanosponges collapse under their own weight, or worse, get swept ashore and bury a city in 30 million tons of hyper-absorbent slush. At this point, you may be wondering, what if instead of stopping a tsunami with a sponge, we built better early warning systems and evacuation plans? Yes, that would be smarter. Tsunamis are enormous, powerful, and extremely dangerous. And while the idea of a giant sponge wall is fun and extremely absorbent, it's not remotely practical. Unless we start making sponges the size of small continents, the best use of sponges in a tsunami is probably cleaning up afterward, preferably while wearing waterproof boots. So next time someone says, let's stop a tsunami with a sponge, you can confidently reply, sure, just give me one the size of Australia.